Good morning. Welcome to the Amarillo Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. I'm Eric Berg. I neglected to put my name tag on, so I almost don't know who I am. I'm going to serve as your worship associate today. We welcome all of you to our service, especially those of you who are searching for a spiritual home. Many of us were once, too, seeking for something larger than ourselves to which we could belong. A sense of rootedness to hold us as we create meaning together. We do that well here, though not perfectly. In this congregation, we strive not for perfection, but for authenticity and connection. Whether it's your first time in worship with us or your 100th time, we hope that you'll find here questions that stretch you, people to befriend you, and liberal religious values that challenge you to join us in a loving, boldly, living justly, and welcoming radically. Welcome. Now we're going to take just, with the addition of these folks that came in, it's going to take more than 15 seconds. So take about a minute or so and say hello to everybody if you haven't had a chance to. Now, if you'll join me, you can stand either in body or in spirit, and join me for our opening affirmation. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humankind in fellowship, for these high purposes we unite in worship. All right, thank you. I'm going to light our chalice now. We light this chalice to find inner peace, love for each other, and faith in ourselves. Also to be welcoming to whomever we meet and kind to all living creatures. So gather around this light of hope as we share this time together. All right, we have a story for all ages now, and Janda is going to read for us this morning.
Actually, Janda, it's cool. I'm prepared for
Oh, just in the same way that I'm listed as Claudia Stravato, he's not Claudia Stravato either. But here you go. You're up. I'm giving up the podium.
All right, well, if you young ones want to come join me up at the front, we'll get this story started. Come over here, kiddos, you can see the book. All right. So this morning we're reading Call Me Tree. I'll be reading this book in English and in Spanish. So this story is Call Me Tree, Llámame Árbol by Maya Cristina Gonzalez. It's going to be a trick juggling a book and a microphone. Here we go. I begin seed, a tree, free to be free. Una semilla, un árbol, libre para ser libre. I wake up, I see sky. Oh, thank you. I dream, I am reaching, dreaming and reaching, reaching and dreaming. Yo sueño, me extiendo, sueño y extiendo, me extiendo y sueño. I wake up, I see sky, sky as high as a bird can fly. Me despierto, veo el cielo tan alto como puede volar un pájaro. I reach and I rise. Me extiendo y me elevo. And what do I see with my eyes as I rise? Y que veo con mis ojos mientras me elevo. Trees, more and more trees. We got sticky pages this morning, folks. Or not? Okay. More and more trees. Trees and trees just like me. Árboles, más y más árboles. Árboles y árboles iguales a mí. A tree I am, a tree I stand. Un árbol soy, de pie estoy. On a sidewalk, en la acera, on a mountain, en la montaña, by a river or a road, junto a río o al camino. Some trees reach, some trees teach, some trees stand so still. Algunos árboles se extienden, algunos árboles se enseñan, algunos árboles se quedan tan quietos. Some sing songs, some sing along. All trees have roots, all trees belong. Unos cantan canciones, otros se unen al coro. Todos los árboles tienen raíces, todos los árboles tienen un lugar. Call me tree, because I am tall, I am strong, and like a tree, I am free. Llámame árbol, porque soy alto, soy fuerte, y como un árbol, soy libre. All right. Thank you all for joining me.
How can you speak Spanish?
Takes a lot of practice and learning.
How
Pretty cool, huh? Let's never teach tomorrow.
Are we singing the children out today, or are they staying? Okay. All right, yes. Well, then, at this time in our service, we're going to share our joys and concerns. If you have a joy or concern you'd like to share with the congregation, come forward and state your name in the microphone and light a candle for the sand bowl.
and she understood me a lot, so that's just heartbreaking how I should share. Hello, I'm Jasper. You remember me from last week. I had the same concern as her. She stole my concern. But I also have a joy that all of you guys are here, and I also have another joy that it's going to be December in a few days, and me and my mom are going to go on a trip this week. So, woo.
I'm Janda, and I have a joy and a concern. My joy is that our friend Debbie Wisenand is here with us today. We're really glad she's joined us. The concern is she brought a project for us. If you need a dog, she's connected with the local artist Dale Connor, who had a great exhibition at Sunset early this year, I think, and sold lots of paintings. And he passed away recently. His wife is in an Alzheimer's unit, and they had several dogs, and these dogs need homes. The house has been sold, and so Debbie's helping them find homes for the dogs. So she's got some flyers. If you need a little dog, these are mostly senior dogs, and so they won't be silly, and they'll be just fine to be pets in your home. So joys and concerns. Debbie, thanks for coming, and y'all help us find homes for the dogs.
The Oasis came over yesterday, and we got to play some games.
And I'll light a final candle for any joys and concerns that may not have been expressed, but are still deeply held in our hearts. All right, now we want to sing the children out, yeah? You got one more, there you go. Now in peace, go now in peace. May our love and care surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. During this time, we're going to share about 15 or 30 seconds of silence, and as you relax into silence, I invite you to think about who and what you're grateful for, and this is the time of year for that. But first, music by Queen.
I am not a stranger to the dark. Hide away, they say, 'cause we don't want your broken parts. I've learned to be ashamed of all my scars. Run away, they say, no one will love you as you are. but I won't let them break me down to dust. I know that there's a place for us, for we are glorious. When the sharpest words wanna cut me down, I'm gonna send a blood, gonna drown them out. I am brave, I am bruised, I am who I'm meant to be. This is me. Look out, 'cause here I come. And I'm marching on to the beat I drum. I'm not scared to be seen. I make no apologies. This is me. Another round of bullets hits my skin. Well, fire away, 'cause today I won't let the pain sink in. We are bursting through the barricades and reaching for the sun. That's what we belong. I won't let them break me down to dust. I know that there's a place for us. Oh, we are glorious. When the sharpest words wanna cut me down, I'm gonna send the blood, gonna drown them out. I am brave, I am bruised, I am who I'm meant to be. This is me. Look out, 'cause here I come. And I'm marching on to the beat I drum. I'm not scared to be seen. I make no apologies. This is me. When the sharpest words wanna cut me down, I'm gonna send the blood, gonna drown them out. This is brave, this is bruised, this is who I'm meant to be. This is me.
Before the reading, we'll take a minute to meditate. Just for a short period of time. Thank you. Closing words for the meditation. When you have all you need, build a longer table, not a higher fence. Now we got a reading by, is it the real Janda Raker? Thank you, Janda. Come on up.
So, last Monday was November 20th, the annual Transgender Day of Remembrance. And so, in accordance with that, we're having our whole service about it kind of today. I was asked to share some words with you today. There's a poet named Keith Silva, and Keith is spelled Keath. If you look him up online, you can find some of his poems, and he has a book out. I looked him up on Amazon. Seems like a really interesting person. The poem that was chosen for today is called Misgendered. It's the title of a poem from his collection called Lady Death and Other Poems Venerating Change. He's a transgender man who lives in Los Angeles. According to Amazon's review of the book, it says it's a window into the transgender experience for everyone, those with a shared lived experience and those who are seeking more understanding. So here's his poem, Misgendered by Keith Silva. I liken how I feel when you call me lady or ma'am to being a balloon that has been suddenly popped, an unexpected slap in the face, a jolt, a fright, a startling concern that maybe we are living in different universes, and therefore I am utterly alone, invisible, and lost to the day. I feel angry when I'm misgendered. My heart races because I've been branded, stamped, labeled, boxed, denied access to truth and connection, completely misunderstood, not accounted for, unprotected, not remembered. Being misgendered derails my day like a train knocked off its track, a child falling off a swing, or a bird being shot in mid-flight. I try to shield myself from being misgendered by staying home, not going to parties, declining social invitations, lowering my voice, wearing certain clothing, avoiding certain people, circles, towns, establishments, walking with a strut, wearing a pronoun mask, hat, shirt, button, and still the onslaught continues. Each time it happens, the quandary faces me. Shall I defend and assert myself, thus enduring the excuses, the hostility, the falling all over themselves with guilt, the explanations, the defenses, the cascades of them hating themselves because I exist? Or shall I take the blow, shrink, grab my groceries and go? Allowing Lady Death into my life is the freedom of allowing the word lady and all the torture wrapped up in it to die, making space for the sound of who I am to fly.
Today, Rynn Burkett, our own Rynn Burkett, will bring us the Transgender Day of Remembrance, intersection of trees, yoga, and gender. Thank you, Rynn.
I have a lot of things. Thank y'all for being here. I know it's a holiday weekend and there are many places you could be, but you are here, and for that I am grateful. I am Rynn Burkett. My pronouns are they, them, and part of my thought with what I wanted to bring to you today has to do with my profession, which is yoga therapy. As Janda mentioned, it was a Transgender Day of Remembrance just this past Monday, and wanted to tie all these themes together. I picked both the story for all ages this morning as well as the reading, and wanted to give a hint at some of the expansive perspectives of those with lived experiences of being genderqueer, being a part of the queer, trans, intersex community. And the reality, like when you live in a marginalized body, and this is what Transgender Day of Remembrance is really about, is highlighting the cost and the loss that often happens when you choose to show up in the world as you are. And so this year alone, we remembered over 320 individuals who were killed due to violence just in this past year. And of course, we know those numbers are probably much larger because those crimes are underreported. We also have 2 in our own community, our own Amarillo community, that died just this past year. So what I'm sharing today is in honor and remembrance for them, and also hopefully message of hope for us. What can we do to both meet the moment where we are at, but also continue to grow and consider how expansive we can be in learning to understand that everyone belongs, that everyone is loved, and everyone, just like all the trees in the book for the kids, we're all connected to the earth. And so just a little bit about me and my profession. So I am a yoga therapist. I am certified by the International Association of Yoga Therapy. And yoga therapists take all the tools of yoga, be it the postures, breath work, meditation techniques, much more, to address an individual's physical, mental, and emotional needs. So the model of yoga therapy in health is unique because we look at every aspect of life rather than just considering a body part or individual systems. And since it's a model that includes the whole spectrum of human experience, I get to work with people who experience pain from various sources. I support people as they navigate major illnesses, neurological issues, concerns related to aging, mental health, death and dying, and support people who are dealing with stress, and those who just simply want to live a more meaningful life. And so the difference between yoga therapy and just going to a yoga class is that yoga classes are very general in focus, and they're centered on the teacher. The teacher's there teaching, the students are there. Kind of like monkey say, monkey do. That is the model of learning in a yoga class. In yoga therapy, everything is centered around the individual. So my job as a therapist is to draw upon all the tools and things I know from the practices of yoga, not just the physical ones, and kind of see what does this individual need, how do I meet this person where they're at in the context of a therapeutic relationship. And so we go through clinical work, we work to help assess and keep clients safe, and we also collaborate and interact with other healthcare professionals. And what I always am telling people is that, we have this idea of what yoga is based off of commercialism, media, and marketing, which takes the aspects of yoga that are easy to make money off of and makes assumptions and assignments about yoga being this image, something that we can put on Instagram. And what I tell people is that yoga is all about people, and it's not about the fancy poses, and that yoga doesn't have a look. The primary foundation of yoga in general, but definitely in yoga therapy, is that we practice a principle called ahimsa. So ahimsa means to not be the lion. Not himsa, lion. Don't be the lion. Which means it asks us to consider the ways that we might harm ourselves or others, not necessarily in terms of violence, because I don't think any of us here consider ourselves to be like violent people, but to consider the ways in which our words, our thoughts, and our actions contribute to the harm of ourselves, always looking at self first, and then thinking, how do my words, thoughts, and actions impact others? And this isn't something that's just practiced on a yoga mat. This is something that we're invited to practice anytime we speak, think, act, regardless of time, place, or circumstance. And it is this concept of ahimsa, to not be the lion, that allows compassion to arise within us. It provides us with a means to let go of otherness in order to see ourselves in the other. Another phrase from a teacher of mine is, "Tu eres mi otro yo." You are my other me. That ability, you might hear the phrase namaste, which is essentially the same idea, but I love this idea that you are my other myself. And the biggest obstacle to that realization is when we see others as separate from ourself. And so ahimsa then is the key in cultivating awareness and interconnectedness of all beings. And one of the most powerful ways we are trained as therapists to practice ahimsa is by examining and shifting our language. So yogically, language is more than just a tool for communication. Language is how we transmit culture, and it is how culture is learned. So our language is a mirror that reflects cultural values, worldview, and can also reveal our bias, both examined and unexamined. And then this is where another yogic principle, svadhyaya, which means self-study, comes in. And that's we're invited to examine and question our assumptions, beliefs, and attitudes. And it invites us to be as open as we can be to new perspectives, as well as the challenging of our own. And as we attune, and that doesn't mean again, we're not being the lion. So as we attune, as we get to know our assumptions and preconceptions, it's in getting to know them that we can expand in our capacity to hold non-judgmental awareness of ourselves and others. So that's a little bit about me and my profession and the perspective I'm bringing in from yoga. And I created this little slide here that has yoga, it has trees, it has gender, and none of these concepts have an image, although the culture we live in would say that yoga looks a certain way, that we know what trees are. We actually don't, which I'll get to here in a moment. And gender is just another categorization process that the powers that be, the culture we live in, has created. And what all three of these have in common is that they don't have an image, and that they are all much more expansive than a little bubble or box could ever contain. And we'll come back to that. I'll keep revisiting this concept, but I'm moving to another slide. This is fabulous. There is a series done by a university in Britain where they challenge their master's and doctorate students to present their theses and dissertations in 3 minutes to a lay audience. It's great fun, and this was one entitled "There's No Such Thing as a Tree." And something I thought that was absolutely fascinating is that lettuce and sunflowers are more related than lettuce and cabbage are. The idea, if you really start looking into a categorization or a box, there's so much diversity, so much expansiveness, and which brings me to the book that was read for Story for All Ages, and the author. And I was introduced to the work of Maya Gonzalez this summer when Banjo, our lead teacher for children's religious education, put out in the newsletter an invitation to do a training led by Gender Wheel on decolonizing gender with nature. So this is Maya and their partner, Matthew. And so Maya is a Chicanx queer femme artist. They are an educator, have written many award-winning children's books, one of which I shared with you this morning. And their work addresses systemic inequity in relationship to race, ethnicity, sexism, cissexism, and how you can use children's books as radical agents of change, personally and culturally. And so they and their partner Matthew co-founded Reflection Press. It is a people of color, queer, and trans-owned independent publishing house to help promote books and materials that come from a holistic, nature-based, anti-oppressive framework. And so I had the wonderful opportunity to take their little on-demand training, and if you have an opportunity to do so, you can find that at genderwheel.com. It's $40 for this training, and something that I think is very valuable as we try to expand our understanding and our understanding of gender expansiveness is coming at it from a different framework. So in all of the materials provided in this training are centered on 4 perspectives, and one is coming out to the most expansive perspective possible, which is nature-based, in which we connect with the truth of nature. Within the natural world, we find an exuberant reflection of abundant body and gender diversity. And nature shows us that body and gender diversity are not only normal, but they're necessary and valuable to the whole. The second platform of the training focused on a decolonized perspective, that it's important we provide accurate context from the starting point of our understanding as we expand, because unless we understand that the origins, tools, and impact of patriarchy, we tend to internalize the oppressive framework, and unintentionally, without intending to do so, we can end up perpetuating oppression rather than pushing against it. And none of us here wants to continue to perpetuate something oppressive. This is an illustration that I love. This is one of the early illustrations of the gender wheel. I have another one that I constructed that I can share with y'all after if you're interested. But it's the platform of taking a holistic perspective of an individual. So the focus on wholeness, interconnectedness, that an individual's whole self is never isolated, never divided. It's always nestled in community with other whole selves, and it's within a whole and connected self that an individual's position and inherent value is always understood and is always related to the all of humanity. So there are 4 circles in this model, and we start with the very center, which is a star, and that represents the person. So each person is a part of nature, expanding out into a pronoun circle. We're born within culture. Again, language is how we transmit culture, and pronouns are part of how we identify who we are within our culture, expanding out to what she calls the inside circle. We all have like an inside self. That's who we know ourselves to be. And we live within a body that is in relationship to others. And so the beauty of a circle is there are infinite points on the circumference of a circle, and so there's room for everything, and that everything is connected. And so it makes no sense for us to divide people into boxes of you belong, you don't belong, you're valuable, you're not, because that isn't the model of nature. And then the second to last, this is another artistic. Maya is a fabulous artist, author, artist, does an entire training on how to publish your own book as a radical act to push against oppression. I highly recommend you look into Maya's work, but looking at circles, and I love how this looks like a tree, a cross-section of a tree trunk. Again, in a continuum, all positions along the circle are connected and equal, which means there is no hierarchy. Each position is essential for the whole, and much as the trunk of a tree grows, it's always expanding, it's growing. It's not ever going, don't need this part, don't need that. Even as a tree encounters resistance from the outside, you'll see a tree just continues to grow around it. I love the pictures of bicycles now that are now a part of trees because someone chained it to the tree and the tree kept on growing, and now the bicycle's part of the tree. We just keep growing and expanding, not rejecting. The last platform perspective that they promote is what they call a pronoun protocol to focus on community equity. And the idea behind a pronoun protocol, like how do we address people, especially if we don't know them. A pronoun protocol is designed to take the risk and responsibility off gender non-conforming people, especially children, and shift the responsibility to interrupt stereotypes and assumptions to all bodies and all genders, because how we speak conveys what we believe, and it can seem like a little thing, but our language can go a long way to interrupting power dynamics. Which brings me here. So, in the children's book that was read today, there was only one pronoun used. Anyone happen to catch that? No? That's okay. We? There might have been a we in there. Some was in there. But the pronoun that Maya highlighted in this book was I. I. What do you think happened when Maya published this book and it started to be reviewed and other publishers are like, I want to publish this book? That sometimes happens when you self-publish and then people are like, oh my gosh, where was this? We want to publish your book. Much to Maya's surprise, everyone described the book about being a fabulous book about a little boy growing up to be themselves. And we're using the pronoun he. And Maya thought this was very interesting and very indicative of how language reflects our assumptions and preconceptions, because the book Call Me Tree was actually written about one of Maya's children, Sky, who was assigned female at birth. And ended up writing a very lovely note to readers which I have and wanted to share a piece of. And I do believe one of the reviewers was like, well, it's a kid with short hair and overalls, and that's a boy. And she's like, on self-reflection and that was my point. Exactly. So Maya writes, the child in the book even declares what you can call them. The child says, "Call me Tree." But the child continues to be called he by folks who give my book really awesome reviews. Tree could be a he, but maybe not. A lot of times we make guesses based off of what we think is true, but those guesses leave people out. And so Tree is here reminding us in this book that there is a lot of ways to be. And she gives the challenge to try on, instead of being called he or she, what if you went by Tree for the day? What would that do? Would you feel different? Would you be different? What would it mean to be a tree? And then this quote here, the power of pronouns is not in the asking, takes this idea and takes it a step further. So you might have seen, like in the signatures of emails, someone listing their pronouns, or maybe when they introduce themselves, they share their pronouns, or maybe they wear a pronoun pin. And these are great things. But pronouns also don't have gender either. They're language, they're words. And even if we do get the word right, that doesn't mean the assumptions that we might have about gender have been fully examined or challenged. And so the power of pronouns not being in the asking, but in the challenging of the assumptions we might make about people. Do we have to know if someone's a he or a she to allow them to be the full authority of who they are, to know that they belong? Like, do we have to know in order to respect them? No. So why else might it be important to expand our ideas about gender? Coming back to Trans Day of Remembrance, so queer, trans, and intersex people are put at unnecessary risk, completely unnecessary, for simply being themselves socially, legally, culturally, and medically. I love this little image. There are lots of statistics out there. I'm not going to rattle them off for you, but sadly, queer, trans, and intersex humans are over 70% more likely to experience crime. That is often by people they know. And non-conforming people are at the greatest risk. And I just think that's unfortunate and in many ways inhumane. And the biggest thing that could happen if we continue to expand our own understanding of ourselves, not just gender in general, but ourselves, is we become more humane and more respectful of one another as a culture. Again, our language reflecting the culture that we were born into, but also the culture that we continue to create. I know, it's heavy. Oops, sorry. So if pronouns are an example of how we use language to translate ourselves into culture, I'm not saying that they're not valuable, because they are. But if we are after real respect and lasting change, the invitation from yoga, the invitation from nature is to go deeper, is to expand, is to become curious, and continue to look at the assumptions that we tie to words such as pronouns. And that asks us to actually see the assumptions. And we all, if we're honest, make assumptions. I mean, we inherited the culture that we were born into. We weren't saying, yes, absolutely, I'm so happy to be here and exist in these systems of oppression. But we have all probably made assumptions about people based on what they look like or dress like, or the pronouns that they use. And we learn all this before we even have language. And part of the beauty of a non-colonized approach to challenging these assumptions is that the gender binary is the cultural belief in a system that says there's only two distinct or opposite genders. And so the belief is upheld by a system of power that reflects colonial, patriarchal, collective consciousness, and wants to ultimately create division and conflict. And so this leaves us with a vision of a world where humans are divided into categories. But the truth is that human beings don't fit into dualistic categories. And like nature and yoga, we're far too complex, and the possible categories are infinite. And the reality is that our lives are profoundly affected by the use of arbitrary mechanisms for dividing humanity into binary groups. So I want to close with a thought for your own self-study, your own self-reflection. Are we ready to let people be exactly who they are, even if we don't know what pronoun they use? Because no matter what someone's gender may be, what is valuable is like tree, that they feel free, strong, they feel a sense of belonging, and feel appreciative of difference and sameness in themselves and others. And I want that for me, and I want that for you, because all trees have roots and all trees belong. Thank you.
Thank you, Rynn. Now it's time for our offering. We give this offering to sustain and grow the life and mission of this congregation. We give in love and hope. Thank you. Now it's time for some announcements. We've got the congregational meeting coming up on Sunday, December 10th. Following that Sunday's service, we'll vote on the budget and the slate of officers, so plan to be here and vote. And if you're not going to be here and out of town, I think there's provisions for you to vote, how you say, in abstention. So our regular meetings are the knowledge seekers meet here every Sunday at 10. The book club the fourth Tuesday of the month, and Nothing Much Buddhist group meets every Monday at 7:30 on Zoom. And Craft for a Cause is the first Thursday and fourth Saturday of the month. Catherine, when we got one coming up? Yes, in December. Okay, so the first Tuesday, and upcoming speech topics will be on Sundays will be Chuck Fisher on the 3rd, Eric Meljack on the 10th, and Shauna Peebles on the 17th. So plan on that. It's now time to extinguish our chalice. The chalice is now extinguished, but its light lives on in the minds and hearts of each one of you. Carry that flame with you as you leave this place and share it with those you know, with those you love, and most especially with those you have yet to meet. All right, now if you'll join me in our closing hymn. May the fellowship of this hour touch and move our lives until we come again together.